For ancient people, a total eclipse of the sun was not cause for wonder, but fear. You could understand why the sudden midday disappearance of the sun would incite terror in a pre-scientific age. In fact, the Greek origin of the word eclipse means to abandon. In explanation of the abandonment of the sun, many ancient cultures assumed the cause was anger or discord between the sun and moon. In West Africa, the Batamaliba are an ancient people of northern Togo and Benin. According to their legend, human anger and fighting spread to the sun and the moon, who began to fight with each other and caused an eclipse. The legendary First Mothers urged the villagers to demonstrate peace on earth to the sun and moon to convince them to stop their brawl. During an eclipse, the Batamaliba people made amends for old feuds and peacefully came together to encourage peace between the celestial bodies. I admit, I glimpsed a remnant of this ancient burying of hatchets right here in the Western Hemisphere of North America, when city folk ventured out into the hinterlands of their regions, when Republican and their Democrat neighbors stood side by side looking skyward. When we all tend to the vertical relationship, sometimes that creates more possibility in our horizontal relations. So there we were, side by side, ignorant or maybe for a moment not caring about each other's beliefs or politics, all gazing in the same direction, contemplating the same wonderment, sharing in the same experience. Did you feel that? The eclipse held more than a mere celestial event. It held, for a brief moment, the experience of total peace in America. But then, the moment of totality ends, and we begin to remember our neighbor's deeply held discrimination against us. The moon slinks back to its proper container, the night. And in the light of day, we can see all the flaws in our neighbor's position. We can see their allegiance to bigotry, and we can no longer abide such hate. Maybe, just maybe, out of the brief togetherness, something shifted that will take hold of those who cling to alienation and fear of the other. When the celestial bodies of sun and moon are angry, the only response here on earth is to make amends. But when they are back in alignment, no longer angry, well, where does that leave us? We need to be clear about anger and its many facets. One type of anger is used by people in power to control, to subjugate, and to dominate. This is a misuse of anger. It is destructive, it is toxic, and has no place in religious life. This is the anger many of us experienced as children. For many of us, we fear anger in general because as children in our family system, we were in its destructive path when it was used against us to confuse us or to control us or to put us on perpetual vigilance, making us wonder if we were worthy of safety or even love, no matter what we did. For those of us who were raised by parents who lacked enough emotional intelligence or time or skill to work through their own feelings, to recognize when their anger was covering fear, or when their sharp, controlling behavior was covering their anxiety. Now, as a result of this, as adults, many of us put anger in the corner with the dunce cap on. as an emotion to be ashamed of and punished. When anger is used to dominate and control, then it does belong in the corner. That is true. This type of anger must be interrogated and managed. But there is another type of anger, a just anger, as the poet Marge Piercy said. The rage of the oppressed, the fury of those trying to survive under the chains, the heavy chains of injustice, the protective anger of one who speaks for the vulnerable. This is an anger that is useful, that can be cultivated. But much like any substance that can become addictive or merely overused, we must heed the warning on the label: rage responsibly. The truth is, if you don't already know, most women today are smoldering with a rage right beneath the surface. Throughout the last decade, we have watched the hard-won reproductive rights that our mothers fought so strategically, so tirelessly for, so that their daughters might have the freedom of choice to not be subjugated and controlled by men. But as we saw last week, the Arizona Supreme Court ruled that its total abortion ban, a seemingly dead law dating back to 1864, that Civil War era, is once again enforceable. This zombie ban, as people call it, because it has been resurrected from the dead, now makes virtually all abortions a felony, imposing a prison sentence of up to 5 years for any provider. There is no exception for rape nor incest. The law was enacted before women could vote and was long presumed to be permanently unenforceable. But the Arizona Supreme Court conservative majority, by a 4-2 margin, has now revived it. And as a result of this ruling, in less than 10 days, almost every abortion in Arizona will be a crime, and nearly every clinic will close its doors. For all intents and purposes, it is 1864 again for pregnant people in Arizona. In the years to come, what this could mean is that in the years to come, girls in Arizona will now grow up not knowing a time when abortion was safe and legal in their state. By politically regressing at this level, in a single generation, we diminish the freedom, the rights, and perhaps worst of all, the imagination, the dreams of girls in Arizona. And maybe it doesn't stop at Arizona. I mean, I think the plan is it doesn't. The smoldering anger of people who are oppressed, whose autonomy and freedom are constantly endangered, reversed, ridiculed, and diminished, that smoldering, those hot coals, can be compared to the most recent version of Marvel's The Incredible Hulk. Now, I have to mention The Incredible Hulk because I studied him extensively in preparation for this sermon, and so couldn't let it go. Inspired by both Frankenstein's monster and the Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde tale, comic writer Stan Lee and artist Jack Kirby created this gargantuan green monster of limitless strength, paralleled by limitless fury. With limitless fury, right? In most versions of the Hulk's comics and films, the transformation from Bruce Banner into the Hulk requires provocation to set him off. Are you familiar with this myth of the Hulk? However, the more recent Marvel film, The Avengers, depicts a Bruce Banner who has integrated the Hulk's rage into his calm, studious human persona of Dr. Banner. Or perhaps it is vice versa. After spending years providing medical care to children in war-torn nations, Dr. Banner is recruited to the Avengers and reveals his integrated nature in a now very famous scene at the climax of the film when the Avengers are threatened by a huge Leviathan approaching in the sky, and they need Bruce Banner to transform into the Incredible Hulk, yet he's not transforming. Captain America, with certain doom up ahead, says nervously, Dr. Banner, now might be a really good time for you to get angry. And here's the line. In human form, you might know it. In human form, Banner begins to slowly walk towards the monster. Looking back to the group, he says quietly, "That's my secret, Captain. I'm always angry." He quickly transforms, destroying the monster instantly. I'm going to be honest with you. Most days, I relate to Bruce Banner. It requires discipline for me to read the New York Times these days. I see that name and face spewed across the headlines. I decry all the free press he gets, the cynical yellow journalism of our most trusted mainstream papers just handing him more clicks, more attention, more followers. Or I see images of children in Gaza starving to death in front of our eyes, or playing in a blown-out building amidst a dystopian urban landscape. Or I read about the rape and sexual violence against the Israeli hostages, and I know that if I were to really pay attention, day in and day out, to the atrocities happening in my nation and with the support of my nation, I would cease to smolder. I would find myself consumed, barely able to breathe. I would find every tiny hardship of American life in 2024 unbearable. All the rage and fury that dwells deep within my psyche would overwhelm me and my children and my spouse and the shopkeeper and the restaurant server, the barista, my friends. It would be too much for anyone, and it would not be contained. The Buddhist monk, the Zen Buddhist monk Thich Nhat Hanh, has a beautiful teaching about this that he calls taking care of your anger. He suggests we each have 51 seeds within us, hidden deep within ourselves. Thich Nhat Hanh also goes by Tui. Tui teaches our consciousness has two realms. One on the surface he calls the mind consciousness, and a lower realm that he calls storage. Buried in the lower realm are the seeds of our feelings, our qualities, anger, compassion, joy, jealousy, and so on. So the seed of anger is always there, dormant within you. But then the seed is watered, or like troubled. Then the seed grows up and out into the mind consciousness. And now it is beginning to power your actions, your words. So, anger, what is it good for? You know, we often feel ashamed or embarrassed of our anger, even when it's righteous. We often regret it or reconsider later the ways our anger overwhelmed us. Like it is off limits, like there's a no trespassing sign in front of that part of us. But anger is useful if we are careful with it, if we use it responsibly, if we rage responsibly. In June of 1981, the Black poet and feminist, womanist activist Audre Lorde delivered the keynote address at the annual conference of the National Women's Studies Association. In her now famous speech, which was later published as the essay, The Uses of Anger, Women Responding to Racism, Lord argued that to effectively address racial injustice, we must first acknowledge the anger that racism gives rise to, and then harness that anger as a tool. Anger transformed into action, she said, is a liberating and strengthening act of clarification. That lightning strike in the poem, remember that? When we use whatever strengths we have fought for, including our anger, Audre Lorde said, to help define and fashion a world where all our sisters can grow, where our children can love, where the power of meeting another woman's difference and wonder will eventually transcend the need for destruction. For it is not, she said, the anger of black women which is dripping down over this globe like a diseased liquid. It is not my anger, she says, that launches rockets, spends over $60,000 a second on missiles or other agents of war and death. It is not my anger that slaughters children in cities or stockpiles nerve gas and chemical bombs and destroys the earth. No. This, from Audre Lorde to a group of feminist women, mostly white women in 1981. The philosopher Maisha Cherry uses Lorde's arguments as inspiration for her new book, which I recommend, The Case for Rage: Why Anger is Essential to Anti-Racist Struggle. Among the various types of anger that a person can have upon experiencing or witnessing injustice, Maisha Cherry identifies one which she calls Lordean rage. Audre Lorde's rage, right? Lordean rage that is both virtuous and productive. And there are other types of less virtuous rage that I want to discuss for just a moment. Cherry's example, Bell Hooks, talks about narcissistic rage. This is a rage where you are only angry that you were the victim of injustice and not that anybody else is. It doesn't aim for full transformation. Its only aim is that you get what you want. Unlike the narcissistic kind, Lordean rage is not only concerned about how you can be a victim of injustice, it is also concerned with how anyone can be a victim of injustice. So it is very much inclusive. It is not self-centered. Although you may be comfortable, if you see someone else struggling or being a victim of injustice, well, that is the rage you feel. Lordean rage is focused on what we can all do to make things better. If it destroys anything, it is going to destroy the patriarchy. It is going to destroy racist structures, yes. But it is not trying to defeat people or humiliate people. It is very focused on transformation. Let our righteous rage ignite us. Let our smoldering lead us toward protecting what is most sacred to us all. Standing up for one another's cause, sheltering our neighbor's safety, and powering our engine forward. Okay, I do have a prop for this sermon. Side note, my 8-year-old son found these at a garage sale, and they have changed our lives at home when his anger is spread about like scattershot or like, say, pollen everywhere. We ask him to go into his room, and he will find these. And when I open the door a few minutes later, he is just smiling from ear to ear. I feel better. So Thich Nhat Hanh offers us a meditation. I'm just going to wear these while I do the meditation. So do this with me. Breathing in, I know anger is within me. Breathing out, I smile to my anger. Breathing in, I honor the anger within me. Breathing out, I embrace my anger as a friend. My rage is a cloud of flame in which I walk seeking justice like a precipice. A good anger acted upon is beautiful as lightning and swift with power.